Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Of course, a couple of years ago, back in, I think it was 2021, yes. Every week, basically, Netflix would put out a brand new Fear Street movie. There were three. Again, it's a trilogy. There was 1994, which is Part 1. I reviewed that, I believe, either in November or December of last year, 2022, and I wasn't that impressed with it. I kept... I had a lot of other things I was watching for tradition's sake, for Christmas time and all that. I really didn't want to get in too deep to the Netflix trilogy, but I did watch that Part 1 with my mom, and we weren't super impressed. We liked it, we loved all the references to Scream. We thought it was a little SJW focused, a little too much for our taste, and I wasn't really excited for 2 and 3. Mainly because 2 had hints of Friday the 13th looking at it, and 3 had like a 1666 vibe, which is actually the title. Fear Street Part 3, 1666. Anyway, Fear Street Part 2, 1978, I finally sat down and watched it about last weekend, I want to say, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had heard people say that the trilogy overall, when you finish it, is really good. I had heard that this was the best one, and especially for people that I watch all the time on YouTube, like Sinister Cinema Reviews, who I trust quite a bit. He and I have a lot of the same taste in movies. And I watched it, and Fear Street Part 2, 1978, is absolutely a love letter to Friday the 13th, the original ones, even down to like the score in it. Sounds like a Manfredini score. This is a great flick. I loved it. Now, just so you know, I'm not going to cover any spoilers from the previous movie. There's kind of one that I have to, involving some of the main characters from the end of that first film, but nothing too big. I won't spoil any kills or anything like that, just in case you're worried about it and you haven't seen these movies yet. Again, you can only see them on Netflix. Anyway, Part 2 picks up with the main chick from the first movie that we kind of focus on in 1994. Of course, her crush, girlfriend, whatever, Sam, is possessed right now. She and her brother, who are pretty much alone right now, they kidnap Sam, tie her up and whatever, and take her to this lady's house that they had talked to in the first movie, who apparently at one point dealt with something very close to the curse of Sarah Fear, who has kind of an evil witchcraft thing over the whole town of Shadyside and all the surrounding areas. Apparently she was a witch in the 1660s or something, we're not really sure. Anyway, this particular woman used to be at a camp, and her sister, who was, I guess, alive at one point that she may or may not have lost, we don't really know the story at the beginning of this movie, she dealt with something very similar at the local camp in Shadyside or around it, whatever, and we get more into that. It takes place in 1978, so even before Friday the 13th came out, but again, it's so influenced by that, and it's very nostalgic. I loved this. I grew up on Friday the 13th films alongside Halloween, alongside Nightmare on Elm Street, but mainly it was Friday and Halloween that I grew up on because a lot of other things had scared me quite a bit at that time. So a lot of little things in here I was picking up on as I was watching it, mainly to the Friday homages all the way through it. It loves that franchise. It really does. And of course, one of the best killers and killer designs from 1994 was the guy that's basically Sackhead Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2. He's essentially the villain here that you're focusing on, but he's not always the Sackhead. He does some other stuff here. The performance of this actor, phenomenal. Really loved him. But anyway, mainly this story focuses on a flashback to the woman telling the story of when she and her sister were at camp. There's an older sister and a younger sister. The older sister is played by Emily Rudd, and she is phenomenal. She plays a character named Cindy, who is just beautiful and sweet and funny. She doesn't cuss or anything, and when she does, it's because she's in a really bad situation at the time. And her younger sister is named Ziggy. We don't know which one is the storyteller in the actual beginning of the movie, and that's kind of the point of the tale, to find out who it is. Anyway, the older sister, Cindy, and her sister, Ziggy, are going to this camp. Cindy is a camp counselor. Ziggy, the younger sister, is actually just a camper there. And Ziggy has kind of a bad attitude all the time. She's kind of a bullied kid, but kind of on the verge of being a bully too. Kind of like the Andrew Garfield Peter Parker in the first Amazing Spider-Man film. As much as I love that film, that Peter is kind of a bully too. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's up for debate. I love that movie, and I love Andrew Garfield as my favorite Spider-Man, but still... there you are. So, Cindy is a camp counselor. We watch some of the things she has to do behind the scenes to take care of the camp, to take care of the campers, and we watch kind of both sides. The camp counselor route and Ziggy's, regular old camper side, being bullied, having some groups of kids out there that are just mean. It reminds me very much of Sleepaway Camp as well. And they eventually stumble across a pretty bad situation, mainly the camp counselors do, where one of their friends becomes possessed, who eventually becomes the Sackhead Jason lookalike type. And he goes on a killing spree. He's killing a bunch of, and I mean, when I say slaughter, I mean straight out slaughter. Kids, adults, everybody. The body count is massive in this. You see about 35 or 40% of the kills in this movie, and they are brutal. They are absolutely brutal. You don't miss anything, dude. You see a lot of stuff. But there's quite a bit that happens off screen, too, because this dude just goes nuts, where he's possessed by the Seraphir curse. It's very effective. Of course, it is a supernatural slasher, tying into that first film being very supernatural as well. When I saw that first movie, I didn't know what to expect with this trilogy, but it is a very supernatural trilogy. But I will say this, if you cut out the beginning of this movie with all the stuff from the previous film, this could be an awesome standalone, a really awesome standalone. As a matter of fact, I think the Fear Street stuff improves it, but also holds it back a little bit. It's kind of hard to say that and explain it, but I really think it does. It's burdened down with the Fear Street trilogy tie-in stuff, but it also is improved by that because of how cool and interesting the curse becomes because of this movie. I think there's a lot more depth that Part 1 didn't have because of Part 2, and I'm hoping Part 3, 1666, can do that as well. This is a great flick. I loved it. I loved the kills. I think all of the special effects are phenomenal. The casting is really good, even down to the guy from Halloween 2018, the really goofy guy that tries to make the moves on Allison, who has no game, who's kind of nerdy. He's in here. He's really fun for the small bit role he plays. The actual slasher himself, the Sackhead Jason type, his performance is great. He is so intimidating and so frightening. The way he hides in the background like Michael Myers and stuff in the dark and camp cabins. That is such great stuff. It's well utilized. A lot of this feels like the MTV Scream TV show, which I love the first 2 seasons of. I haven't seen season 3 yet. But I love the first 2 seasons of that show. I'm a big fan of the Scream TV show, and I talk about this all the time. It might be my favorite thing from Scream aside from the original movie. This feels a lot like that. If you're not a fan of the Scream TV show, I don't know how to recommend this to you, this trilogy, mainly this movie especially. But it's weird to me because a lot of people who love this trilogy hate the Scream TV show. So I don't really know who likes what or why. It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I think the writing is very strong in this movie, especially with the casting. They really got writing down and pat so much better for the storytelling, the pacing. This movie is almost 2 hours, and it does not feel like it. It flies by, and it's so much fun to watch. It knows when to do jokes well, and it knows when to do scares well, and it makes all of that effective. The funny, the scary, all of it. It makes it really work, in my opinion, even though it feels more like a teenager MTV type of thing. The woke SJW politics stuff is not really in this movie, which is great. I'm really thankful for that. It's not really there. It's not shoved in your face like Part 1 was, and it doesn't ruin this movie as a love letter to classic slasher stuff, like the camp slasher type movies we used to get all the time, like Sleepaway Camp Friday and all that. The look of the movie, the cinematography, the locations for the camp, I think look fantastic. I think they really landed that. I think it feels good. It's not as much of a character as I think should be in this movie, but like the camp is kind of divided into 2 different areas. Of course, we know that Shadyside is kind of divided into 2 different areas. Anyway, in the first movie, they kind of hint on that and how long that went far back in this movie. Like the camp itself is divided into the 2 different areas of kids that come into this camp, the kind of richy kids and the kind of not really poor kids, but lower middle class kids. They have a little bit of that in their feuds going back and forth, how mean they are to each other. That stuff is really funny and well written. It feels like classic 80s type stuff in the best possible way. And again, the kills, I'm looking at my list here of things I want to talk about on this particular movie. The kills look really great. They really, really look great. And I really just want to keep hitting on that. The blood looks really good. It's got a lot of surprises. I think there's a lot of great twists in here that really work. I'm surprised by how much more I love this compared to Part 1. I really expected kind of a mediocre trilogy after Part 1. No, this is way better. This is such a great improvement, dude, and it's hard to believe that, too, because pretty much everybody involved with Part 1 were involved here and in Part 3. So I'm really stoked for Part 3 to see what's going to happen with this series. The music, as I said earlier, it feels very Manfredini, very early Friday the 13th type stuff. If you love that, you will love this. And it's weird that this happened, too, because before I watched this movie, I want to say about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was thinking about Friday the 13th. You know, we have this announcement for the new Crystal Lake show, and we have this new announcement from Sean Cunningham about a new Jason property, right? A new movie or something. And I was thinking to myself, could you actually make Friday the 13th's music in modern day and actually make it work on a new Friday the 13th? And at the time, I came to the conclusion, no way. Then I watched this, like not even a week ago, and I was shocked with how the music is clearly Manfredini, Friday the 13th type stuff, and it works so well in a 2021 film. You could easily pull this off in 2023, or whenever the new Friday comes out, if they would go this route and have something similar to that. It's all about the filmmaking, and that's really the beauty of this. I can't believe how well all of this worked. It proved me wrong on certain things like that, and I can't truly, honestly believe that. This is such an astounding flick. I really loved it. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about Fear Street Part 2, 1978, down in the comment section down below. By the way, the final thing I forgot to mention too, the actual soundtrack used, not just the music made for the movie, the score, the actual soundtrack is fantastic. It is one hit after another, and the good kinds of hits, not just garbage you hear all the time on the radio in your rock station that thinks Journey is a rock band. It's not like that. Of course, this is 1978, so you have a lot of old classics, you know? But they're actually classics. They actually fit really well for what this movie is, its tone it's going for, all of that, dude. It landed everything, in my opinion. With all that being said, though, when it comes to Fear Street Part 2, 1978, this really improved the trilogy for me. It improved Part 1 for me. I kind of wish I could own all three of these movies on a physical media disc now because of how much I loved this flick. This is so good. I could not recommend this enough to you guys. If you haven't seen it before, you really should see it, especially if you were disappointed by Part 1 like I was. I did a review for it. I thought it was bland as hell. This is not that at all. This is extremely, extremely good. And if I had to rate Fear Street Part 2, 1978 on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was genius. And basically, like I said, you can kind of watch this as a standalone. Just a little bit. It really improves on a lot of things that Part 1 didn't do well, in my opinion. But anyway, eventually I'll have a review, hopefully in the next week or so, for the third film and final film. I know they're supposedly making more, but I don't know. That film was called 1666. I will get to that soon, but for now, that is my review for this. What did you guys think about Fear Street Part 2? I would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comment section down below, like I said, because this surprised the hell out of me, frankly. I did not expect to go in this and love this the way I did. I knew nothing about it, and it blew me away. Could not believe how much I loved this. One of my favorite slashers in recent years. Up there with Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 I think I like better than this, but I'm also a bigger Art the Clown fan than I am a Fear Street fan. Anyway, what do you think? I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below. Have you watched the whole trilogy? What's your favorite out of the movies? I have a feeling this will be my favorite, personally, because this was excellent. Excellent, dude. 5 out of 5. That's really high for me. I don't really see any flaws at all in the movie. I really don't. Anyway, have you seen it? What do you think? Put your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. God bless you all, and goodbye.